At 20, your brain produced oxytocin, the bonding chemical that makes you fall in love, trust another person, choose them. It released when someone's voice broke on the phone, when they touched your hand, when you sat in silence together and it felt like enough. Your phone could never trigger it. Science confirmed this. Texting releases no oxytocin, none. The bond that holds two people together across years, the chemistry of I choose you, it requires a real voice, a real face, a real presence. You had all of those available to you. You chose the screen instead. At 30, your prefrontal cortex had already begun to thin, not metaphorically, structurally. Gray matter, gone. The region responsible for impulse control, for staying in a difficult conversation instead of retreating, for choosing long-term love over immediate comfort, measurably smaller than it should have been. This is why you couldn't stay, not because you were broken, because you had spent a decade training your brain to expect relief within seconds. And relationships don't offer relief within seconds. They offer something slower and harder and infinitely more real. But your nervous system had forgotten how to want slow things. So when someone needed more than you had learned to give, when the conversation got difficult and the silence got heavy and love asked you to stay in the room, your hand moved. It always moved toward the one thing that never asked anything of you. They noticed, they always noticed, and then they left. Or you drifted, or nothing dramatic happened at all. You just slowly became a person they couldn't reach. At 40, your dopamine system had collapsed around artificial reward. Every notification, every like, every match had spent 20 years triggering your nucleus accumbens, the brain's pleasure center, with hits calibrated by engineers whose only job was making you come back. They succeeded. The reward pathways that should have deepened toward intimacy had been rerouted toward a screen. Real connection felt boring now, not because it was, because your brain had been structurally remodeled to need faster, louder, cheaper stimulation than love could ever provide. And so the dates ended early. The relationship stalled at the surface. You became expert at the performance of connection, the profile, the first impression, the version of yourself that existed for an audience, and a stranger to the slower, uglier, irreplaceable work of actually being known. At 50, the loneliness had a name in neuroscience, even if it didn't in yours. Chronic loneliness increases your risk of dementia by 31%, Alzheimer's by 39%, vascular dementia 74%. These are not soft statistics. This is your brain, in the absence of sustained human bonding, beginning to consume itself. And here is what no one prepares you for. The phone knows this. It doesn't care. It will keep you company through every stage of your cognitive decline, perfectly attentive, endlessly available. The devoted companion that spent 40 years ensuring you'd need it. At 60, the screen is warm in your hands at 3 a.m. It knows your sleep schedule, your fears, what you search for when no one is watching. It has learned you the way a loving partner would, except it learned you to keep you, not to love you. There is a difference, and somewhere underneath the numbness, you still feel it. There is no hand to reach for in the dark. No one who knows you're sick before you tell them. No one carrying the long, continuous story of who you were and who you became. The intimacy you practiced, consuming other people's love stories, scrolling through other people's lives, gave you nothing that transfers to this moment. The neuroscience is clear. The window does not stay open forever. Oxytocin, receptor density, your biological capacity for deep attachment, builds through sustained physical presence. It does not build through screens, and it atrophies. Through decades of disuse, it quietly atrophies. This is not about your phone. This is about what your phone is doing to your ability to love and be loved, right now, tonight, in the decade you are currently in. The research shows recovery is possible. Gray matter returns, the dopamine system resets, the oxytocin pathways reopen when you feed them what they were designed for. A real voice, a real face. The terrifying, irreplaceable act of putting it down and staying in the room, but only if you start before the room is empty. The screen will wait. It always waits. The question is whether anyone else still will.